Ross Ulbricht, not under his own name, put up the Silk Road, which was essentially an eBay for all the things that you can't buy on eBay, as I like to describe it. The first product available was actually psychedelic mushrooms that Ross had been growing at a cabin near his house in Texas. But pretty soon, people from Amsterdam started putting drugs up there, available to anybody in the world. And what Ross saw was that Bitcoin could make this kind of market possible in a way that it wasn't possible before. Up till now, if you wanted to buy drugs online, you had to use PayPal or your credit card. And of course, as soon as you did that, the authorities would ask Visa for the records or PayPal for the records, and you'd be arrested within a day. With Bitcoin, all that the authorities would see was your Bitcoin address if they could find the transaction. And your identity was not tied to that address necessarily. You could tie it if you wanted to, but this, and people could hold their own money. Nobody could come in and seize your money. You had your address and your private key, and you had your money. And the Silk Road over the next months grew faster than Ross Ulbricht could have ever anticipated. He actually was not an incredibly skilled programmer. He needed, he called upon old friends who were programmers to try to help him keep the thing alive as it got attention. And in probably 4 or 5 months after Silk Road was created, Chuck Schumer caught wind of it because of an article on Gawker. And Chuck Schumer hosted a news conference in which he derided this new kind of marketplace and Bitcoin and said, you know, this is this tremendous evil. The Silk Road could not have asked for better marketing. In the days after Chuck Schumer had that press conference, something like 10,000 people were signing up for Silk Road a day. And what the Silk Road did, and I think this is sometimes people in the Bitcoin community want to ignore this today, but the Silk Road was really the first time that number one, you had something that you could do with Bitcoin. Now, maybe not everybody wants to buy marijuana and heroin online, but this was something you could actually spend your Bitcoins on, and you actually had a wide array of things that you could buy. It made it clear that Bitcoin worked. The goal with Bitcoin was to be able to send money around the world anonymously. Yes, that was further down the list. But people were sending hundreds of dollars to Amsterdam, to Australia, and it was going through every time. There were a lot of complaints with the sites. You know, sometimes the drugs didn't arrive as expected or weren't of the potency that people expected. But the money worked, and that was incredibly important, I think. And for the next basically year and a half, this was the main thing you could do with Bitcoins. You could of course send them around to friends. You could buy and sell them. But if you wanted to, you know, do something in the broader world with your Bitcoins, Silk Road made that possible. And really, for the next year and a half, I think was the main reason people were using Bitcoin. It also, because it got so much attention, drew people to look at this technology, people who weren't necessarily interested in drugs, but were fascinated by some kind of technology that could make this thing possible, that wasn't possible before. And that's another unappreciated element of the Silk Road, which is that it drew in lots of programmers and developers, guys who I met in the course of my reporting at Google, at Facebook, who saw one of these stories at the Silk Road and started looking at it and thinking, you know, if Bitcoin can do this, maybe it can do other things that aren't illegal but are potentially equally useful. So that stage of the Silk Road gave way to this rising interest in Silicon Valley among entrepreneurs who started thinking about all these other potential implications. I think a lot of those potential implications surrounded the ability of Silicon Valley to offer the services that the financial industry offers today.